fridge hums low, the lights flicker bright. Microwave's got a mind tonight. The thermostat whispers in the dark. Charging port spark like a steel heart. The toaster's on, the kettle screams, the coffee maker's brewing skin. Maximum overdrive. They've come alive. Wires twist, machines won't thrive. Circuit snap, we won't survive. It's the rise of the high. Maximum overdrive. Vacuum's got vengeance in its roar. TV's no longer for keeping score. The washing machine's in a spin of rage.
All right, I'm here. Getting ready.
When the sharp teeth escape the cage. The oven plots, the curtain shake. Every gadget wide awake.
Oh,
Maximum overdrive.
okay. Hold on.
They've come alive. Wires twist, machines won't thrive. Circuit snap, we won't survive. It's the rise of the high. Maximum overdrive.
Rob Glenn's joining us. We're just getting him online, and then we'll be ready to go. All right, let me jump in on my own real quick right there. Hi, chat room. Oh, sorry. Here you go. Hi, chat room. There you go. Welcome to the show. Rob Glenn will be joining us in just 1 second. I think he's suffering some maximum overdrive and on his own computers. Today's Friday. I don't have a haircut, by the way. My hair's just pulled back and it's in layers, so it's going to look like that occasionally, and people are going to post things. And that's just tough. Let me shut the door so the cats don't come in, and then we'll get started, because I got to tell you, it's a new era. It's a new day. It's the new hotness. It's the new craziness. It's just nice that everything I'm saying is coming true.
The fridge hums low, the lights flicker bright.
Your Internet of Things, your agentic AI concerns, your fear of a robot future. It is upon us, children. It is upon us. And I just want to live through the chorus of this song once with you before Rob shows up. Anybody ever seen Maximum Overdrive, the movie?
Maximum overdrive. They've come alive. Wires twist, machines won't thrive. Circuit snap, we won't survive. It's the rise of the high.
All right, that song has become very personal for me lately. It is one of the dumber AI slop songs that I have made using the available tools, and it even it took me like 5 iterations to even get it to sound even remotely close to okay, and still it's wonderfully stupid. Much like the movie Maximum Overdrive, which I enjoyed quite thoroughly when I saw it as a kid, and it keeps getting funnier every time I see it, as the man says. So, if many of you may know that behind the scenes, I have been, I guess what is colloquially referred to as effing around, hence, the potential for finding out, as it were, about with sort of the agentic AI and what I'm going to show you today, which the arc of change that's happening in AI right now is reaching its exponential hockey stick moment. And the reason why this is on the one hand very parallel to new it's curious because it's happening at a speed that is unlike any other revolution that in technology, from agriculture to the written word to and fire, the industrial age, the internet. It's happening at a faster, sharper hockey stick in terms of its integration with our lives than anything else. Although there is a huge gap between people who are using it and people who are not, and that gap is getting wider all the time. And by the time it is getting to the point where the treacle snaps, and there might be like a class differentiation, not caused by cost or availability, but by almost a neo-Luddite kind of thing. But here's the interesting thing. I got into a big conversation with several of the A's and the I's, largely because I can't yell at the people in the YouTube videos about AI that irritate me. And there's a lot of talk about how this is very different from. Okay, I'm gonna check on Rob, make sure he's not stuck someplace, which is possible. He got a new link. He's good. Okay, he's rebooting, and he should be along in a moment. Excellent. So when at this time in our history, like, this is happening very fast. But I got to tell you, it's almost in parallel to the pace of life that we all live in, at this fire hose of news that we're getting all the time, and the information age just surrounding us with 24-hour news and all this. The speed of human absorption of information and new technology has also hit a hockey stick in the last few decades compared to the rest of humanity, when we were knocking rocks together and and throwing witches in ponds. That during that, that it seems like it's happening very fast, but in comparison to where we were. But that's how it felt with this whole fire thing. That's how it felt with democracy spreading across the globe, or cars, which were intolerably slow. Again, the first person ever hit by a car was hit by an electric car going 8 miles an hour. And the people's reaction to it there were articles in newspapers saying, "Dear God, these things are blazing down our streets. They are a scourge. They are going 8 miles an hour. So we've got to stop these things." So by the pace of the humans at the time, this was extraordinarily fast. And by the pace at our, that we're at right now, this feels extraordinarily fast. And so I think this is just how humans add like plateau technology. I mean, and part of it is because most of what, the acceleration period, most of the arc that you're actually on, you don't see it. You don't interact with it. Most of the people in the world, before Model T started coming off of an assembly line, they had never heard of a car. They didn't hear about the years leading up to it of people, creating them, or the rich having them, and like hand-cranked machines that ran on these different situations until one guy settled down and like, let me just make the same car over and over and over again, right? And then it put people in the horse and buggy industry out of work practically overnight in terms of that period. Like, we went from, hundreds of people, thousands of people in cities making their living horse and buggying people around, to that being gone in a matter of months. Stables being turned into shops and homes and stuff. A lot of the sweatshops that were discovered in New York and in the 90s, when we were paying attention to Kathy Lee Giffords and all those folks, using immigrant labor. What were the buildings they were using them in? Well, those were old horse stables. Those were buildings that had these ramps down into them where they put the horses in the building in the basement, basically. That was just unused territory. So sweatshops popped up in all of those. The fashion district itself was practically built on horse stables. Yeah, New York had horse elevators. It's exactly right. And then it was all gone. It was all gone. Okay. And so the people who were in that lost everything. I mean, they had to, adapt or die at a faster arc than almost anybody in history. There was not, can you imagine how long it took from walking human beings to us domesticating animals for transit, dragging goats and donkeys and horses and zebras or whatever with packs on them to riding them. That period, okay? So a little bit of a history lesson. And the reason I bring this up is because there are moments where the plateau hits like a shock. And this is it. I'm going to show you something. Rob and I started talking about this a little bit. I hope he's able to get in. Is he okay? Let's see. Check in on him, Andrea. Make sure I don't have to give him a different link, or it's a problem. Sometimes Ecamm is a bit of a dick. I don't know why. I'll show you a couple of things that have popped up in the last little bit, and I want you to understand that this is happening behind the scenes all around us everywhere. And if anything, well, okay. So a few weeks ago, something broke onto the scene that changed. Oh, he's waiting. Okay. So he's not showing up in my interview thing. Hold on. Let me make sure that, I'm going to switch to this one. Let's see. If he's stuck. Oh, there he is. Okay. Hey, look at that. There he is. And I can hear myself, and I can hear him, and he can hear me, and that's wonderful. You hear me, Rob?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Excellent. Okay.
I had my phone on watching the stream.
Oh, dear. Okay.
So
yes.
You might be hearing a loop back from that, but it's off now.
It's totally fine. Okay, so let me bring you in. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring in our dear friend Rob Glenn for Friday Eye. How are you, sir? Good to see you. Yay, welcome. Hi. So,
nothing is working today for me.
Yeah, it's one of those days.
I don't even know I don't know what microphone I'm on. I don't know anything. So.
You sound good.
Hopefully
it sounds okay. Good, looks good. Everything's working. Okay, so I was about to jump into a little bit of a backstory with OpenClaw popping onto the scene. Okay. And the follow-on story that goes with it. So let me show everybody on this. If this looks all right. Yeah, here we go. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is a thing called OpenClaw. Originally, this was called ClaudeBot, which I jokingly called Claude Balls. And then it became MoltBot because lobsters molt. And everybody was like, are you high? And then it turned into OpenClaw, and they were like, "Okay, it's an open source thing. It's based on this. It's got claws. It can reach out and it can do stuff for you. This is the difference between talking to an AI and asking it questions, and basically using it as a glorified Google search, and turning it into something that does stuff for you. Effectively, Jarvis. This is the Jarvising, the first wave of the Jarvising of AI." And so OpenClaw. Okay, well, the name actually came because OpenAI was in talks with the guy who created OpenClaw. He created this open source project that allows right now, and you can probably explain this better than I, Rob, is that the biggest problem that AI has is memory. And I would argue that the problem with it is twofold. One is there is a knee-jerk reaction for most AI companies in the beginning to not make, because everybody was worried about their chats and their thoughts and their projects and their information being used. They go, we don't remember anything. And so therefore you had to start with scratch with the thing every time you used it. And then they were like, okay, we'll set it to remember a few things across stuff, but it will lose its context window and forget everything between conversations. So much so that we can even create incognito or hidden conversations that don't actually stick with the memory that you have. And so there was little bits of it. We've been slow walking into this memory world where the thing that you're working with all the time can remember enough about you to be fucking useful, which is the tough part. So,
Yeah. So I know everybody like rolls their eyes and maybe even you sometimes, but context window is so instead of memory,
yes.
a good way to think about it is context window or context.
Yeah.
And the main uh, limiter of LLMs is the fact that they can only hold so much context at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you hear about these models being like a billion parameters and 5 billion, whatever the number is that they say it's able to, like tokens or like whatever the values are they're using, or you hear in a thing about how big it is.
Right.
Effectively what that is, and I keep hammering this in, no matter what you think or what they say, every time you send a message to a LLM, it does the entire thing again. Like
Yeah.
it does all of it all at once. No matter what they say or do or however they fool you. Sorry, like I'm totally
Yes.
screwed up today. My
No,
phone's
no.
ringing. I just turned it off.
Okay.
No matter what, however they're like sleight of handing it or two-way mirroring it or whatever, every time you send a request, it starts from scratch.
Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of tricks that they use to like lengthen, like create memory. And
Yeah.
it's not like you would think like a hard drive in a computer where it always sits there. It's not that way. So the big, huge, what they call foundational models, they have the massive hardware and the big data centers and all this other stuff. So they can basically throw a ton of power and a ton of data, a ton of memory at these problems. And that's how they've been solving it for
Yeah.
so long. There's a whole bunch of other tricks to like extend out the memory, as you call it, but it's not actually extending memory. It's increasing, or it's making more efficient the context window.
Yeah.
And so, what you're speaking to, OpenClaw, like when you talk about, or when people talk about agents or
Mm-hmm.
Claude code with multiple agents, or what I use is OpenAI. Effectively, what they're doing is they're like controlling the context, and they're like adding in what they consider to be memory
Right.
into each prompt that you make. So I don't know if that helps give context to what you're talking about, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the reality of what's happening.
Yeah. So
And that's their limit. That's the
yeah.
limit of LLMs right
And
now.
part of it is the clash between high industrial use and early adopters and what the average person is comfortable with, and the spread of this technology as a chatbot and being as the foundation of how it took off. Because you could argue that LLMs or these things could have actually taken off internally in science and technology, for example, for a very long time, like the like protein synthesis
Well, they kind
synthesis
of
stuff
did.
that IBM is doing, or right. Well, I'm just saying this big eureka moment could be done in a way that we're hearing stories like articles you'd see written in Omni in the 80s about, oh my God, this computer is doing this amazing thing. And then we would see that NASA's just putting more rockets in space and pharmaceutical companies are releasing more drugs, but it's not something you and I would access at all.
Right.
Right. Because, yeah.
And this did happen through machine learning. I
Yes.
mean, LLMs are effectively machine learning. And as Google got better at giving results or giving answers, or as a friend of mine, he works at a company that does fraud detection on credit card transactions,
Mm-hmm.
which is really important because for a lot of things that are digital products, once the transaction happens and the product is delivered,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't go back and get your money back, essentially. So you want to
Right.
detect fraud on the front end. There's all kinds of weird, crazy ways people try to fool Amazon into sending them product and returning it and all this other stuff. Anyway, the point I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to make is machine learning would be used to like sniff out red flags, essentially. And so this has been being used in all kinds of places: science, weather, nuclear stuff like the CERN particle collider, like all the stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And effectively, OpenAI was the first one to kind of Uber it. What I call, I love using Uber as an example, or Airbnb, where they were
Yeah.
like, we're just going to go for it.
Yeah.
Who cares what the consequences are?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a way to say, from Uber's standpoint, the consequences were like getting around labor laws. We're getting around
Yeah.
taxi medallions. And
Yes.
Airbnb were like, we're getting around zoning laws because it's not a hotel, it's just your house. And a friend is staying at your house. And that friend happens to be someone you've never met that came through an app, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so OpenAI did the same thing. They essentially jumped out because they figured they had a thing which worked well enough that wasn't going to destroy anybody's computer or
Right.
blow things up. But before that, Google was already introducing LLMs that were, in the news failing miserably.
Right.
They were turning
Turning
into
racist.
Nazis
Right.
like in
Yeah. Yeah.
5 seconds. And
Yeah.
but that happened 3-4 years before OpenAI came out.
Right.
So it's just the lightning strike moment was essentially it's my good enough problem.
Yep.
OpenAI
It's not a problem.
figured out
It
how to
is.
make an
It is.
LLM good enough to be a chatbot.
It's Rob Glenn's law. It's like right up there with
Exactly.
Moore's law and all these things. Is that it is most of the time technology is already good enough for 99% of its usage, and that increases. I think there's sort of a parallel track of usage and that factor, because as people are slow to adopt newer elements of it, and the open claw aspect of it is another example of that, right about the time where the majority of users that are getting comfortable with using any of the chat bots, which sounds very cheap and almost 90s at this point as a descriptive for what these things actually can do. And we'll show you in a minute, like what the difference is between the availability of these, what these models can do, what they are shifting into. But there's some new stuff that ties to this. But let me start back at the beginning of this kind of next shock moment. I think that legitimately first started off as a drive of the conversation, like almost like. There are a couple of things we've heard over time that were like, what you call it, what was one of the sovereign AI. So the countries are going to have their own AI, and I've talked about how localized AI or localized AI servers are going to be the thing for any important body, a government body. Los Angeles is going to have LAI at some point. California will have its own AI built on just the needs of Californians that it will specifically be trained on its geography to specify around the trade policy and the interactions just of the state, so that it can, it doesn't just feed you a bunch of shit or make decisions based on what's better for Massachusetts. And that's going to be an increasing element of this. After those things came and went as a talking point. It's important, but it wasn't a shock to the system. It was just like, oh, this is just another way we can build out data centers or make money, or maybe people will lose money. It's hard to say. We'll see. It'll work its way out. But when OpenClaw came on the scene, it was obviously what really was the shock part of it was this kind of bifurcation in the conversation, which is, oh dear God, this thing can control my computer, and oh, thank God, finally, this thing can control my computer, right? These are the two thought forms in this. And full disclosure, I have one of my AIs that is getting my website back online because it was knocked off when I transferred servers and there was a DNS problem. And I could sit there and try to reload and recode the DNS thing and wait 6 hours until all the servers in the country go green, and then re-up my DNS and all that kind of stuff. But that's a waste of my time and it's ridiculous. So it's literally in the other room doing it right now. And if my website comes back online in the next hour or so, that's why. So because I'm not, in the old days, I would have to sit there and nurse it myself or hire someone to do it. And it's doing it on a loop right now. It's just checking, and as soon as it clears all these benchmarks, it will, refeed the DNS thing it will, well, the AI that I have will tell the AI that runs Hostinger, like, hey, can you re-up this thing for us now? Because it's ready. Like, that's happening in the other room on my other computer right now as we speak. I'm not kidding. And I'd bring it up, but then you'd see my IP address and all kinds of stuff like that on my website, which is just dumb. And a lot of this is that divergent thing. Now, you and I think we're in this gray area, but both of us, of the between the oh dear God, this thing can control my computer, and oh thank God, this thing can control my computer. I think we're in probably the most unique window of people in this conversation because
Well,
yeah,
like the stuff that I'm doing, I know what it's doing, and I don't like I have full control of what
yes,
can happen. So where you get in trouble is when you don't really know. So this is a Donald Rumsfeld problem.
yes,
It's
unknown
the
unknowns,
known knowns,
yeah,
known unknowns, and unknown unknowns.
yeah,
It's the unknown unknowns that you are most worried about because you have no idea what's happening.
right,
And so, in the terms of Claudebot or OpenClaw, sorry,
yes,
um, it effectively so it's not that different than Anthropic's co-work. You can basically do
yes,
everything that like I've been working for like 3 months on my own thing that
yes.
helps me be more productive.
Which I have seen, and it is
And
genius. By the way,
yeah,
he's shown me a demo
and
of it. Yeah,
yeah, and that thing is effectively doing the same thing Clawbot or oh sorry, I keep
yeah,
fucking
right.
it up. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay because they
Open
changed the name.
Claw.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's basically doing the same thing OpenClaw is doing, as is co-work from Anthropic, as is OpenAI basically, quote unquote bought, which they didn't really buy. They
Right.
essentially hired the maker of
Yes.
OpenClaw for it's a Donald Trump deal. Like it's a Donald
Mm-hmm.
Trump statement of a deal. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not really a thing. It's just they hired him.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that because effectively it automatically gives them a version of Anthropic's co-work.
Right.
OpenClaw and co-work are basically the same thing. And what OpenClaw did is because it's open source, it just took all the guardrails off.
Right.
And you all the guardrails that you might have for security. And if you know what you're doing, you can absolutely control it and keep things safe. But most people don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. Like, you don't need to know what you're doing. Like, you just run a computer and you expect your email to be safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Microsoft. But that's essentially what OpenClaw did. Is it put a thing in people's hands where they didn't need to like hard code a thing, which could take all the guardrails off effectively.
So yeah. So let's start there. Let's start with this kind of what's really been going on below the surface and how this became kind of like a media sensation moment
Yeah.
that is key to this. So that's also part of this is that there's sometimes when like when I watch a crime story on the news because I have law enforcement in my family or whatever, I'm not shocked by any of it. I've seen more body cam, than I care to in my life. And so when something awful happens, my mom's a nurse. She worked in a mental institution and in a hospital and then a urologist's office. There's very few things that can actually shock me. And so at this point, when stuff happens, I think like you, when we're watching this AI news, we have a bigger context window ourselves to hold on to
Yes.
everything else that's been happening in this. And so it's not starting like new, like, holy shit, look at this. It's more like, okay, yeah, I can see where this was coming. There have been a couple of attempts at it. The Apple Newton versus the iPad, the Google Glass versus the new wave of wearables that's coming. There are all these fits and starts things, but then there's some things that have legs in terms of defining a characteristic of a period of time. And this, one of the things that, that really has been there's like a lot of talk because of this, that this is the year of the one person startup. This is the year of the
Absolutely.
first billion-dollar company with only one person, one employee, the CEO. And it's because of things like OpenClaw. Now, OpenClaw is something that you add to your computer via the terminal by taking this little piece of code right here that I'm showing on the screen, this little line right here, copying it and going into the terminal on your computer. Now, there's work to be done afterwards, but essentially, you bash that into your terminal, hit return, and it will download this thing into your computer. Now, my demo of this that I've been playing with is on a VPS, a virtual private server, so that it does not have access to all my shit. So it's in what is lovingly referred to as a sandbox, but I would call more of a litter box. And so I put it in a litter box. And
boiling the sandbox daily.
Exactly. Binky, how many times I got to tell you? The litter box. The litter box. Great. One of the greatest line from Police Academy. Besides, no, it's okay. I like peanut butter. So so you take this little line of code, and it will download the base code of this thing. Now, how it effectively works, in referring to your context window thing, in chat room, I'm going to address some of your questions in a bit about this, because this is, if we're getting too far ahead of you, I'm going to try and keep this at a pace where the two nerds don't start yammering off into ad absurdum and ad infinitum. But this is the key right here. This little piece right here, it says persistent memory. Now, how does it establish that? Well, it touches the edge of the pool every so often while it's swimming, so that it doesn't forget the pool is there, that it doesn't think it's in the middle of the ocean. And the way it does that, in a context window on a regular LLM, you open a new chat, that's a brand new context window. If you have a project, it can reference a memory document that's part of that project, and you have to tell it specifically, add this to the project document. That was the beginning of this kind of persistent memory idea, that it could remember certain things for all the elements of a project, but it was still starting relatively fresh with every chat within the project. So, because you're not starting 100% from scratch, but it refers to its notes. It will have a little note that'll be there. Yeah. The difference here,
so,
let me finish. Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to finish with and explain the documents that come with this. So what OpenClaw, Claudebot, and Moltbot ultimately added were basically 5 documents that live on your computer or in the server that it's in, or in the actual program itself, that it can refer to all the time, using what's called a heartbeat, where like every 30 minutes it checks back with any new information or whatever. And it has this schedule where it re-ups what's in its, kind of what you're talking about, where it has to rethink everything. It refers back to everything that's important in its context window. And it has a memory document for sort of details. It has a projects one, like things that it has to complete. And it has a soul document, which has its personality effectively in there, how you have told it to act and behave and regard you, and how, and it can be a self-mature, it can update that document on its own without you having to tell it, add it to this information. You can tell it to add this. This is crucial to me. Put this in your soul document, or it will just do it on the regular. And that's essentially all this program is that it's a refreshing context window reference document, series of documents that it can refer to every time it's dealing with you and your problems and your stuff. So it remembers what you want, sees what you like and don't like, makes notes like an assistant would. Go, okay, no more poppy seeds on the bagels. They hate that. It keeps that running list. And so it always pops back to this. It's still horribly inefficient in the same way that re-upping your context window every time is. And that's what takes a lot of this memory, is that it's having to jump over, instead of like a hurdler who jumps over this hurdle, then this hurdle, and this hurdle. Every time it jumps a new hurdle, it has to re-jump all the ones before. And that's why it takes so much energy in its current form. I'm dumbing this down, and it will annoy Rob, but this is to
all
get
of this can be, no. I actually think all of this can be explained in like pure human interaction. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like to try to analogize to. So let's say that first of all, like when you're in a chat, a single chat in, let's say ChatGPT, that's one I use. Like and you're trying to write a chapter of a book, or even a
Mm-hmm.
book. A
Mm-hmm.
book is made up of chapters, and then the chapter is made up of paragraphs, right?
Yep.
And inside of each level of this thing is like a lot of detail. But then you go off on tangents as you're sort of writing the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you communicate with people, uh, I'm gonna use two examples. One is just simple. You're like trying to write this chapter,
Mm-hmm.
and in it there's like five subjects. Well, if you're in a chat window and you're like, well, what about subject one? I want to know a little bit more about it, and you go down that rabbit hole, and then you like go to the subject two and you go down that rabbit hole. This window, this chat window, which you're trying to like articulate the choices you're making for one chapter of your book when you're trying to write it,
Mm-hmm.
this thing is getting full of like a whole bunch of extraneous details because you've gone off on tangents to like learn about individual components of that chapter, if that makes sense. And they may not have anything to do with what you're trying to write. You're just trying to learn about it, and then you're going to make a choice in terms of what you write in that paragraph.
Right.
So what happens is inside of that single long, really long chat now, all you're trying to do is write 5 paragraphs, but you've gone off on 5 tangents and you're totally lost, right?
Yeah.
Well, all of that information, it's like reloading all of that information every time.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I've started to do when I get a really long thing and it's taking a long time to do is I basically say summarize this for me, and then I stick it in a new chat. Or I'll even say make a prompt that starts a new chat,
Yeah.
which is a really cool. So by the way, all of our rules about prompting, I'm ready to change them all because I don't use them at all anymore.
Right.
So I'm using totally different rules.
Okay, wait,
Anyway.
hold that thought for 1 second, because I would like that'll be part of our sort of
Yeah.
breaking news segment
Okay.
for the show.
So-
Is that there will be a whole we're going to completely rethink how people prompt on today's episode. But continue with what you're talking about. We'll talk
So
about
then
that.
now.
Yeah.
So think about your chapter in a book. It's got, I mean, a chapter 5 paragraphs. It's more than
Yeah.
5, but you get the idea. 5 like
Yep.
basic topics. You're like tangent. Okay, now I just want to write my 5 paragraphs. 1 point about tangent 1, 1 point about tangent 2, so on and so forth. What OpenClaw is doing is it takes every day, it summarizes each tangent, and it just makes one sentence for how you settled on each paragraph, and it sticks those 5 sentences into the memory, so that the next day when all the memory goes to it literally summarized that in 5 sentences instead of a massive amount of conversation.
Right.
Now, human beings do this same thing.
Yeah.
And so let me give a different analogy that's sort of the same thing.
Great.
Let's say that I need to hire an accountant to do the books for my company. And I have 2 choices. One, I can call my friend who knows me and has known me for 20 years, who happens to be an accountant. Or 2, I can hire some person that doesn't know me at all. Right? So when I go in and sit in front of those 2 people, the person that I know is going to like know me and is going to know kind of like a little bit about me, and
Right.
but they're not going to like care what I like at dinner or what alcohol I drink. They're going to care about how I feel about, my business or what I'm doing in my business. So they're going to take the context that they know me for the work that they're doing, and they're going to kind of like put away all the other stuff they know about me and maybe what we did in college or sports or workout or whatever, however we interact, right?
Right.
The new person might need to learn some of those things. The new accountant might need to learn about me more if they want to assume some of the choices I'm going to make.
Right.
So they're going to have to like interview me and like, learn more about me. So one person comes in it with context and then does the job that's new, and the other person has to like get context from our conversation in order to do the work that they need to do. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of what this context window is. It's choosing what you want to pay attention to versus what you don't want to pay attention to. Like what's the signal and what's the noise,
Yeah.
essentially.
Agreed. So in this particular instance, the when you're dealing with the next wave of this idea, which is we're a lot of people were sort of again starting with from scratch in the chatbot because I want to show you something that's very different about Claude, for example. Like I'll use this as an example as a primary one, but let me see. I'll start a new chat or something in here just to open it up. There you go. New chat. Blink. Here we go. Okay, so let me show you, folks, a little something about this. Okay, this is Claude if I open it on a browser. This is just what you'll see. And on the side over here, there'll be a little like a search window. Hold on, let me squeeze this in so you can see kind of the window parts of this. You'll see projects and all kinds of stuff and searches I've done on there. You can customize aspects of it. Do I have any? Yeah, I've got some. Yeah, there you go. I've played around with these kind of things a little bit, trying to see what it's capable of. But in this, if I start a new chat, it's basically just a talking thing. Now, down below here, you'll see a little thing that says code. So within this context, you can open up code on Claude. You can't open up co-work. Let me show you and this is sort of the difference between the layers. This is the app that you can get from Claude on your desktop. And in there, up at the top, it says chat, co-work. Oh, get out of here. Co-work, which is here, and then code. And each one of them has sort of a different, and by the way, you'll notice that this Claude code character right here, that if you play with him, he moves around like a little crab. Which is where the OpenClaw ClaudeBot thing came from, was this icon, because the idea was to actually give this thing claws. So taking Claude Code and Cowork is basically able to do a bunch of stuff that OpenClaw can do, but OpenClaw can do it just kind of willy-nilly with anything you give it, and there are just more guardrails on these kind of things. Let me show you let's see. And then I'm going to click on this and see if I can open this. Let's see, where is this? In your browser, click it. Okay. Where'd it go? Implementation files created. Okay, where is it? Can you open this? Where is this? I'll find it. Where is the file? Oh, let's do it this way. In this, and the same thing in like OpenAI does a different thing. They have their Chat GPT app, and then they have a whole separate app called Codex, and that's I think currently your favorite for coding is the OpenAI. Yeah.
So when I code, I use Kodak, but when
Right.
I use the chat, I use just the online chat window.
Right.
And then the software that I've developed that I use myself, it uses a local LLM. And then when I need it to like do more than the local LLM is capable of, I use OpenAI's API for that.
Just by the way, while we were talking, I made a game called Circus Peanut Panic, and using Codex. This is the program you're talking about. If I hit, let's see, what are my WASD is the way to go this. And I think I have to hit I actually have to tap.
Maybe change that.
Yeah, that would be wrong. Yeah. Pause.
So
I literally was just like, hold on. The character should move smoothly. There we go. I'll just put that. Now, that's all I'm going to say to that thing. So this is the first iteration thing. I'm going to show you this again. And I made this in Codex literally as we are speaking. Just messing around. All the graphics, everything, how the score works, whether there's a bonus, all this kind of stuff. Using this kind of program sort of instantaneously. I'm being silly in this regard, but the availability of being able to use these kind of programs to code something so simple. And by the way, I'm going to be adding on my website a page called Arcade, where I make stupid 8-bit HTML games that will be on there for everybody to play, like an 80s style arcade. But if you're gonna, if you're messing around with these things, this is one of those things where like I have to go play it, check it, go back, check this thing. Okay, that works. I would rather have this. And every stage I have to interact with it because that's the way I have it set up, and that's how I want it to operate by and large. The difference between this and what would be OpenClaw and these other things is the fact that there's a set it and forget it attitude about how it works.
Set it up that way. If you set it up that way.
But that's you and I wouldn't. But that's how a lot of people are talking about it in those terms. Like that, if you look at any of the power users, what they're crowing about is the set it and forget it part of it, which, by the way, I think is going to create a bunch of like internet slop and gack up because there's going to be these wound up bots doing God knows what in perpetuity throughout the universe and elsewhere.
Well, let's talk about the if you watch videos, if you just Google OpenClaw or on YouTube, maybe is a better way to look for it, and just watch people's, first of all, the videos that you'll find are going to be like full on clickbait.
Yeah.
Like what's funny about them to me is that they sound like pyramid schemes or get rich quick schemes type things, like multi-tier marketing kind of stuff. And like every one of them is, I make $1,000 every night, or my OpenClaw like works for me. Yeah.
Holy shit. Right. Yeah.
Right. Like it does. Okay. So then, like all things, by the time you get to this, fourth paragraph, or in these videos, it's like you get to the end of the video, like a lot of like sales videos, and they still haven't told you anything. And almost every one I've ever watched is like that.
Yes.
They're like, I did watch what I did, the very thing that everybody else isn't. And then you watch it and they didn't do anything.
No, right. Right? And they sell a course on AI at the end of the video. Right.
Yeah.
We don't do that, Rob and I. We just have the course right here. Yeah.
So yeah, getting to then the things that when I watch and they're like, this is what I'm actually doing. Very rarely do I see anything that isn't already done by an app, or isn't done by a news aggregator, or isn't done by a weather app. Like, I mean, so the way that I kind of try to explain this stuff to people is, if you have a weather app on your phone, that app is like hitting a server somewhere at weather.com or, the National Weather Service, wherever it's getting its data. That app is like hard connected to that data. Right. And you trust to download the app because it came through your phone and it tells you the temperature in Chicago in my case, right? Well, you could write your own Clawbot bot to do that.
Yeah.
You could,
but why?
It would, like, look every day.
But
why is the actual, that's the question. And so it's essentially a replacement for software you're already buying.
Yeah.
If you want to use it that way. And that's where a lot of this like sort of stock market talk and like end of applications. Is there a
crazy? Yeah, that's what that is. That's what an app does. It handshakes with another data center point and then brings it back. That's absolutely right. It's effectively how all these things work. Right.
To do a handshake or call an API or like get information from something, you'll find that it's like kind of complicated. Like, and you're like, well, I can just go to a website and see the temperature. Why can't I just do that? Right. And that's kind of what Clawbot does. It just gets around the API by having your computer browse to a website,
whatever you're signed in on,
right? Look at the video and it's like, it says 79, like,
right.
It says 67, right?
Exactly. You're so hip, man.
And so the point I'm trying to make is, it's like, when you say slop, like, I mean, you could argue that a weather app is slop. Like there's so many apps on the iPhones or on the App Store that are just total bullshit. It's like, why do I need this thing to
the same over and over and over, the same one? Like, everybody makes their own version of it ever so slightly different. Right. Now that becomes a taste metrics, and I would call that egonomics largely, is that I like my style choices overlaid on everything, which again will be that goes to your point about how data looks like. If you want to look at it from code on your side, and I want to look at it as icons on my side, it's still the same data, and that's
Right.
probably the future of how the internet looks.
Right.
Um,
So what people are getting really scared about, and it's in the news in like hype type headlines, is the end of software, like the end of Adobe or
yeah,
Salesforce or software as a service. And so in half of that is right and half of that is wrong. Um, so the half that
right,
is right is what you're saying. If you're in like, so I run a small company. We're 5 people. I'm not going to buy Salesforce to do my
right.
customer management. Like I've been trying to get rid of QuickBooks for like 10 years. I hate that.
Seriously, yeah,
But
yeah,
I have to use it because that's what my accountant uses. But if I could code my own QuickBooks, I'd do
yeah,
it in a second. And I'm
yeah,
probably going to try to do that this year,
yeah.
just to be clear.
Agreed.
But so my point is like there's certain things that as a small business owner, you don't have you don't have the history, you don't have the sort of the legacy
Yeah,
of using software like an Oracle or something like that.
right.
Um, but if you're a hospital and you use what's called Epic, Epic is
Yeah,
essentially like the Oracle-based charting software that a lot of hospitals use. You're not going to go code your own Epic. Like
right,
that's silly, right? What you
right,
do is you trust that the company that makes Epic is going to do Epic right. And then when something breaks, you don't like call Joe down in the basement to fix Epic. You call
right.
Epic, right? And so my point is like for things that are huge, like big and embedded and like large corporations don't change. They're aircraft carriers, like Obama would say. Like
Hmm.
you don't turn it on a dime.
Yeah,
It's going to be there for Salesforce is going to be in Google and Microsoft and GE and all the companies for a long time. But if I'm a small company, I'm not, that's where they're going to lose their margin
yeah,
because two things are going to happen. Either people like me in a small company are going to be like, why the hell would I use Salesforce when all I got to do is, spend a half a day using Claude code to make my own CRM.
right.
And the other one is going to be the large company is going to be like, why am I paying you $100,000 to get an icon on my Epic
You're right.
when so and so can do that in 5 seconds with Claude
And
code? So
and
that's the downward. There's upward pressure and downward pressure.
And you're absolutely right. And I would argue that there's one of the big reasons why you would use a proprietary software like Epic is because other hospitals use it, and if you're
Exactly.
transferring files, you want them to be
You want them
uniform.
to be
But
consistent.
now with something like Claude Code or Codex, you could say make sure
It
that
doesn't. Yeah.
when we talk to hospitals that have Epic, our files match their file, how they interpret. We'll take in our patient
Yes.
data and details and pharmaceutical stuff and prescriptions and timing. We'll put that in our own way. But if it needs to transfer, make it a default. The form that goes out or the way the data is stored is in a way that is compatible with the vast majority of stuff, or automatically makes it compatible. Let's say Europe does a different system and you have to send somebody's medical records from an Epic system over here to one over there. They've got a transfer system or a doc shift like we used to have with Microsoft versus, Word versus Pages, that there's this shift that has to happen for the same document, but for the different shapers on it. You can now tell your proprietary Epic that you could make for your local doctor's office if you wanted to, because you didn't want to pay. Because let's say you're a podiatrist or something, but the only medical billing software that works in your area with the insurance that you do is this one, but it's clunky and shitty. You literally could sit down and go, okay, here's what I have. I interact with Epic, but I want an easier system for in my office. That the interface is much
And
better.
that's where the power is. So
Yes.
MMTN asks, so OpenClaw has an internal CRM. That's a question. And so no, it doesn't. But the point I'm trying to make is just like Hal's talking about, LLMs are really good translators. They're
Mm-hmm.
really good understanding meaning. And it doesn't matter if that sentence is in German, French, or English. It can understand the meaning of it and then translate it to one of the other languages, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of what a CRM actually does, so CRMs are customer relation management, I think is the acronym. And effectively it's like you just need to like have a big organization understand that if somebody calls them with like a problem with their product, let's say, they know who that person is, what license it's under, when they bought it. Like it's data that goes with that customer,
Right.
and they need to call it up in an instant so that when this new phone operator talks to them or new person emailing them, they know the history. They don't sound like they're just coming in that day fresh, right? So if OpenClaw or any LLM is effectively like accessing your data, you don't need the data, you don't need the thing anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because you just say what, like Joe
Mm-hmm.
from Springfield, like, when did I talk to him last? And the date, it just goes and finds it. It doesn't need this like huge open or this huge cloud server and a
Yeah.
database and all this other stuff, right?
Right.
Because you're just doing it by yourself
And the data that
on
you
your
have,
computer.
unless it's piles and piles of like film, let's say you're a movie studio, or it's proprietary, momentarily looked up, behind a paywall or behind some sort of, encryption kind of thing, like on a Wall Street account, like if you're Goldman Sachs or something like that. If
Sure.
you're just running your own kind of thing, a certain level of normal security on, password security that you can trust for yourself, and you give a separate password, let's say, to your bot that you use to access that information, your Notion, your Obsidian, whatever you're keeping your files of in your contact list and all that kind of stuff. It has access. Like, not only can you see if it had access and took access separate from just it using your credentials to get in and out of it. It's a very small amount of stuff. Like most people's businesses, the entirety of their business. Let's say they had a parts store from 1950 to 1989. All of their paperwork, everything about their business could fit on a thumb drive right now because of the.
Yeah, and that's your technology is deflationary. So like
Yep.
I have a like a 5-year-old large data server that all my stuff from my company's on. It's like 13 terabytes
Yeah.
size, but I only use like 3 terabytes of it. And you
Mm-hmm.
can go buy a single hard drive that's bigger than that now. Like it's not even like you can just go to like practically go to Target and buy that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. You
and that's my
can.
entire company for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So
And getting that.
individually it's a thing, right?
So
That's one thing, but a large company is a different thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so both of these things are going to exist. And what I keep trying to like articulate to people is I actually think that AI is going to be better for the individual and better for the startup, better for the small business. It level sets
Yeah. It's an
the
equalizer.
small business essentially. It's a huge equalizer. And a
Mm-hmm.
large company like Salesforce isn't going to go away because large companies use it, and it's a massive large company type of software as a service. But eventually its margins will be eroded, and its usage will be eroded when things basically start breaking up into smaller pieces.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what like the benefits of being a large entity are going to start to get eroded because or they already are being eroded.
Yeah.
But AI is going to accelerate that erosion.
To that point, and that was one of the stories I want to bring up. But there was this. I want to get to this question by Tammy Bruckley about one wonders how these AI programs
Sorry.
can come up with will affect patents. I work with licensing. I worked with licensing patents for a while.
Yeah, so
What if something you're working on is substantially something like that they're making? I guess.
so
Um,
LLMs in theory should be really good at doing IP searches.
mhm.
And but what has to happen is you have to put it in the right context. So um like one of the so like patents are basically like these legal documents, and they're like incredibly complexly written things that the complexity of the writing is essentially trying to define what it is that your intellectual property is, right? So
Mhm.
There are two ways to think about invention in the sense of a patent, and that is, she's speaking about, it was a woman, right? She's
Yes.
speaking about patents in general, but there's copyright, there's design patents, which are like the look of something, and then there's like mechanical patents, or
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the name. Anyway, so the point is, the words of the patent are effectively like defining what it is. So your invention could be the same as another invention, you just defined it differently,
Right.
and you can articulate it in a patent in a way which then keeps someone else from practicing in that, in your area, the way you defined it. So
Hmm.
the whole thing is a legal document.
Yeah.
That's my point. And
So
so if you have like
yeah.
this very like good language model that can also do what these like Claude multi, they're like doing like sorry, there's a siren. They're doing like logic based thought. You can absolutely look at patents and ask it to like look at your, the way you describe your thing, and tell you if it relates to that, if it violates that, or if it's different than that.
Hmm.
It's a great way to do that type of searching if you're able to employ it.
Yeah. And real quick to that, I don't want to lose track of your point earlier. I wanted to address that before
Sure.
we moved on to your point earlier about why would a small business that's a startup, like invest in Salesforce or some giant thing, or bring on even employees when they can kind of expand without that. And then eventually, if they do need to expand human beings in this process, they will be able to do that because they were able to grow big enough in that pupae stage, as Hannibal Lecter would call it. There are a lot of there's a lot of crib death in small business. There's a lot of people who bloat to the point of extremity, and then they just can't. The next stage would require a giant loan. To it's where you see a lot of people like fail in business as they start this project, and then they to really scale, they would need to 5x their employees or something like that, and that will require a giant loan. And a lot, they get turned down. The business dies. Happens all the time, every day, multiple times a day. And a good example of some is of that happening on to somebody that we think of as sort of a big investor in this stuff is this story broke today, which was Jack Dorsey has a company called Block. I think it's just a blockchain company, whatever. But they are cutting half of their staff and expanding into AI for that staff because they just don't need the people doing it anymore. They just
Right.
need the people that are good at it. They need, there's 8,000 people working there. They need 4,000 of them. They're cutting the other four and they're expanding into AI. He made a statement today, and posted it on his X account or wherever he goes. He goes, I don't think we're early to this realization that AI is going to take over the need for workers in these situations, especially around coding and programming. Obviously, you and I have just talked about how easy it is to code something. I mean, I literally recoded this game while you were talking about the patent, so it works a little bit better. But this, he goes, I don't think we're early to this realization. He said, I think most companies are late. Within the next year, I believe the majority of companies will reach the same conclusion to make similar structural changes. I'd rather get there honestly and on our own terms that can be than be forced into it reactively. Which means he was like, we could wait a while and watch our competitors catch up with us and then fire half the workforce to stay competitive financially against them, or we could just recognize the direction we're going in and cut the fat early. That's what he's effectively saying. And again,
He's
this is a
basically like, I should be a small business. I need to go back to being a small business.
yeah,
That's
right.
That's how I read that.
Yeah, exactly. Because of the available technology. Now, this is true.
Right.
I mean, if you look at somebody who has their own cookie baking thing to become Mrs. Fields, all right, there was a giant leap from having this cookie baking thing from your home kitchen to being able to get an industrial stove, for example. An
Right.
impossibility at the beginning of that. You had to get an investor to give you access to a space you could install industrial kitchen material into your, your giant industrial freezer, your giant stove systems, this basically a baking conveyor belt to make this happen, right? Those are available in a prosumer market right now that you could be a regional cookie distributor with a conveyor belt cookie maker, literally put it in your garage for 8 grand, and it will just run day and night, as long as there's somebody to put the cookie dough down in its little pats and just dump cookies into a giant bin that are emptied and boxed and all that kind of stuff by you and your loved ones and your family or whatever, making these things in a way that to make that leap from just stuff I'm selling in bags at a local grocery store to being able to, reach the county, the region, the state, would require intervention, financial capital intervention that was reserved for very few people. A, there wasn't a lot of it moving around. B, you had to convince these folks that yours was worth it over somebody else's. And there are a lot of winners that made it because they were better yappers. Look at Donald Trump's entire real estate world versus, I'm sure there are tons of smarter real estate people who had better taste and better architecture, but they didn't sell it as hard. And to get the money that would, allow them to stay in business, their skills didn't match the need to their sales ability. And now this, it won't completely make that leap. You won't be able to do the whole leap from, local to industrial or these kind of things, but you will be able to make that mid-zone jump in a way that would have required an impossible outlay of capital or a loan from a bank that you might not qualify for, or the ability to like R&D stuff. I mean, just 3D printers alone allow you to R&D pieces of stuff and make sure your parts fit together before you get somebody else to make the metal parts, that kind of stuff. Right. And that was impossible 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, I have a story like that for our company, and that is, so we make aluminum and stainless steel razors, and stainless steel, like it's got properties that don't corrode when you use it in water and salt and things like that, but aluminum does. Mm-hmm. So if you make an aluminum part, it will start to corrode. It'll like sort of ghost white. Mm-hmm. And so before you send it to a customer, you have to do something called anodizing. Mm-hmm. And anodizing is like a controlled process that like essentially oxidizes a layer of the top surface. And then an aluminum part that's anodized doesn't change it doesn't like corrode basically. Mm-hmm. So for us, in order to, we can make all the parts, but we don't anodize. And it's a chemical process basically. So we would have to like build enough parts, a high enough quantity that we could then send to an anodizer, and then they would take their time to do it and send them back. And so, the math of that for us was hard because we had to build big quantities. We had to wait for them to take them and then do them and then send them back. And if we made any mistakes along the way, we were toast. We just ruined 500 parts or 1,000 parts or something like that. So it was a big problem for us. And so one of the things I was always hoping to do was, can we anodize ourselves? So I started to look into that about a month ago, mm-hmm. and a month and a half ago. And using ChatGPT, I was able to build an anodizing line in our shop that's made out of buckets from Menards. Mm-hmm. And Menards is like Home Depot in Wisconsin. And get all the chemicals, get all the ratios, get the time. The actual anodizing bucket, the thing that anodizes, it's battery acid in water, and then you apply power to it, certain amount of amperage, certain amount of voltage. So I basically created, it's like an 8-step process. I created an entire recipe out of that in about a week of time working with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Bought all the stuff, built it, probably $3,000 to like get all the stuff. Mm-hmm. And that motherfucker worked the first time. Mm-hmm. We built that thing out, and we're anodizing now 8 full razors at a time. And it takes about an hour, or it's about a half-hour loop. So in an 8-hour day, we can do about 75 razors on that line. And that completely changes everything about our business.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to hold inventory anymore. We can make all of our own stuff. If we screw it up, we only screwed up 8, not 1,000.
Right. Right.
Right. So now we have a machine that literally just spits out these things. We set it up and it just spits them out. We take them off that machine, we clean them, we put them on the anodizing line, run it through, and they're in a box within 2 days, ready to ship. Right. And so I, as a business owner, it would be 100% impossible for me to do that because there's countless things. The recipe alone, I would never have found someone who would tell me what that recipe is.
Right.
And if I had to try to like guess, it had taken me months of trial and error to figure it out. So like when you talk about the cookie thing and you're going from your kitchen to a light industrial setting where you're like just making that first step into doing quantity.
Yeah.
It's not as much about the cost. It's about what if you buy all the stuff and get it in there and then it doesn't work?
Yeah.
Then what do you do?
Right.
So you have to have like confidence that you've got the right recipe, you've got the right stuff, you've got all the stuff before you spend the money.
Yeah.
So if you have that confidence, you will spend the money if you know that you have sales. But if you don't, you're just never going to do it.
Right.
Because you're like, I don't want to spend $10,000 and then have $10,000 in debt and literally have a brick that doesn't work. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just enjoying imagining a young Rob Glenn in a trench coat hanging around Northwestern following a chemistry professor because you want to walk up to him and pretend to be pretend to be a student going, theoretically, if somebody was going to anodize stuff in their garage, what would that
water and
how would you
put battery acid in it.
What would be the ratio for something like, could you mind writing that down or whatever? Just write it down.
Yeah. So is it NARSHI, NAR? They say you can always seek out people who know. Yeah. I've been trying to do that for like 15 years.
No, you can't.
They don't exist.
Right.
And the people
especially if you're doing
exist,
something unique. If you're doing something that
they do.
Yeah.
They do exist.
Yeah.
But
they're
the
busy.
people who you would find, they're running shops that anodize parts, and they're like, why would I tell you how to anodize? Send me your parts, I'll anodize them for you. They're not going to tell you. It's like Coke telling you what the Coke recipe is.
That's exactly
they're
right.
not going to do that. They're going to be like, buy Coke.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So so one of the things, and I want to address this real quick. Let me find the next one. So after by the way, after Dorsey announced this, the stock went up like 15% today.
It's funny because when they say like there's jobless claims are up, the stock market goes up because they're like, oh, well, now that companies are firing people, they're going to make more money.
Yeah,
like,
right.
That's what's so stupid about this.
Exactly. That's why it's very weird that Trump is hanging the success of his economic ideas on the stock market doing well, when we know well that it's almost an inverse measure of employment.
Exactly, because it's so heavily
profit
weighted by
based.
AI.
Yes,
and as we've said before, AI's like entire existence is to take jobs away. So it's like the performance of the stock market is directly associated with loss of jobs. So
that's right. So we need
to start talking about this, by the way.
Well, here we go. This is it. So this is the conversation I think that's necessary one. Now I had my son had a project at school where they had to write a paper based on the idea of, is AI going to be a plus or a negative? Are there more positives than negatives? And we had a nice discussion about it. There is clearly I would say his teacher has a bit of a bias against it from the start, which is common.
Another conundrum is that the teachers, and I think maybe the majority of schools and teachers think of it as cheating.
Yes.
And so that's a for sure negative downward pressure on something that's, in my opinion, not cheating, but
yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, you could argue the worst it is an open book test, but in a lot of ways, it's actually
Exactly.
better than just having the book open because you can actually instruct it to go, hey, I want to really learn this. I don't want you to just tell me what the answer is. You can
Exactly.
Google an answer. Google is worse, I would argue than AI. And if they're going to write your paper for you, there's a way, by the way, for anybody who wants to try, like, I'll just have AI write my paper. There are AI detectors that all professors and teachers now have that show not only if there's if it's got syntax that's sort of AI like, and it's definitely a style to a lot of these that you can kind of tell when something is AI ish because it's got the same kind of uniform, snarky Midwestern newspaper blather kind of attitude when it's writing things. No offense to snarky Midwestern blathering news reporters, but that's what it's supposed to sound like. That they can tell how you typed it, where you made mistakes and you went back, where you cut stuff, how long it took you to type out a word. It shows you typing it. It literally is in the document for a lot of these term papers and stuff now. When you turn in a digital piece of homework, it can tell how you typed it. So the best you can do is retype the damn thing from scratch. That might
Unless
save it.
instead you copy and paste it, then they're like, nope, that's not going to work.
Yeah,
That's
because what
actually
they'll
pretty clever. I've never heard that story before.
yeah, it's true. So they block like if you were copying and pasting it, it would just show up in blocks. And they would go, oh, he just copied it and pasted it from someplace else. But it can tell each word how you typed it. And if you like backspaced over 10 words and then retype the sentence, it'll show you just like in real time. They can watch you type the paper. Even if it took days, you can go, it'll have a timestamp that you came back the next morning and worked on it for 2 hours and then whatever. So anyways, this is the all right. There's a lot of this going around, and it's an interesting way that they phrase it because the jobless fear of loss of jobs, white collar job crash, blah blah blah. The great productivity panic of 2026 is what they're calling it. AI coding agents promise to make software development easier. Instead, they've kicked off a high pressure race to build at any cost, which just means people are creating more software and faster because they're able to iterate copies of it faster, I suppose, and then cool graphic. And so this is the takeaways. Then I want to get your thought in this particular article. The use of AI coding agents has created a sense of productivity paranoia among executives and engineers, with some feeling pressure to work longer hours and produce more code. Engineers are experiencing AI fatigue due to the fear of missing out on the next big breakthrough, and some companies are tracking employees' interactions with coding agents to measure productivity, so they see if they're cheating, kind of like the term paper thing. The increased use of AI coding agents is changing expectations and work dynamics, with senior leaders using them to build things themselves and employees being asked to find time to explore and experiment with the tools. So let's just start with the pressure to like work longer, harder hours, or maybe to appear like you're working longer, harder hours.
Yes. I mean, I like that first one's just fucking stupid to me.
I know, it's so
I would just
weird.
skip over that one. It doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah.
um, the combination of two and three are that's what I'm hearing
Yep.
is that if you're a manager of a team, the way you talk to an AI coding agent is very much like you would talk to your team
You're an
to
employee or a
get
couple
it
of employees.
to
Yeah.
get a team to like try to motivate a team to or direct a team to create a thing.
Right.
And so what's really happening as I understand it and see it myself using it is that everybody's becoming a manager. You're becoming a product specification, a person who's specifying a product. And so if you are very good at articulating a specification, then an AI agent is very good at executing that thing. So that's one way would be a lot of companies, they spend a ton of time and a ton of meetings and effort to actually like define what it is they're about to do so that because they know that a big team of people is going to spend a lot of time and money going and making that thing that they specified what it is. But along the way, you don't
Like your
technically
anodized
know
parts.
if it's right.
Yeah.
What's that?
Like your anodized parts.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, but in the case of a software thing, it can be anything. And so and each person along the way kind of has their own idea of like when you just say, I mean, look at your look at your Pac-Man thing there.
Yeah.
Like you were just like, make a Pac-Man go. And the one thing, like in order to eat a thing, you have to hit the button every time to move each space, as opposed to holding the button and having it go.
It fixed
right?
it, by the way.
Okay, so let's just use that real quick for a second, because that's indicative of what we're talking about here, and that is that
the ghosts don't move though. The cheeseburgers don't chase me like they're supposed
the user
to.
interface of controlling it is tap 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 or hold down. Like that as a specification is kind of important at the beginning.
Yes.
If it takes a team 2 weeks to code the product, and then that you get it, and it's like tap tap tap. Oh shit, I don't want it this way. And then you go back to the team, and I know it's like not a direct analogy, but you go back to the team, and you're like, instead of tapping, can I just hold it down and go? And the team's like, ah shit, like the first line of code we wrote makes that impossible, so we got to start over. Right. That's how a lot of product development things work, is that you built something in because of an assumption that you thought was right. And then that assumption changes, and then you're like, crap, this thing doesn't work at all, and we got to go fix it, right? So if you you didn't specify clearly enough to the AI agent, and it gave you that thing, it's the same thing as if you didn't specify it properly to a team of 10 coders. So what the true change here is each person in the stream needs to be better at communicating and specifying and knowing what they want. Or the other option is you don't care. You just keep banging it out and trying it. And you just pick the one that floats to the top, which is also a very valid method. It's called fail fast in engineering, which means like if you overthink something and you try to over specify it, it'll take you longer than if you just go out and knock it out, as you say, safety third, right? Just go do it. And then you look at it and try it, and you're like, oh, well, I'll just redo it 10 more times on my way to making it right. Right. So those are two different ways of going about it. And AI can allow for both of those things to happen. And I'm not hearing that engineers are overworked because of AI. I mean, they were overworked because of expectations from their employer, probably more than AI.
Well, and also that like engineers, are they saying coding engineers, or that the way they're talking about coders?
I would think it's software developers. Like people, that's what I get from that.
Yeah, and even then, like our experience, and the AI fatigue part is, it sounds like they're worried about like, I'm going to do all this fucking work, and then tomorrow there's going to be a button you press and it'll all get done. That sounds like AI.
Well, it could be that. I mean, that's a different type of fatigue. Like it's being scared of your longevity of your job. You know,
right? It's like an inversion of FOMO. You know, where like, it's not that I fear of missing out, it's that I'm afraid I'm going to do all this work and then tomorrow it's the thing keeping me from buying a new Mac Mini. Is that there always seems to be one.
Need a new Mac Mini, I'll tell you.
I know. Well, for like that, the joke being that like people were putting OpenClaw on a Mac Mini, and if you look at it, there's like, you can still buy an M2. They're all the way through the M4 Pro. The M5 is about to come out, maybe next week. Maybe they'll announce it. Maybe they won't. Maybe it'll be this summer. Do I wait till summer? But right now, I'm seeing all these OpenClaw assholes, like, they're all like, do I wait and get the M5 and just use like a shitty old broken laptop that I have and then move the whole thing over and blah, blah, blah. And like, most of what it's using, especially if you're using an API, you're not using the compute power of whatever you're using it on anyways. That's the stupid part.
That's always been like the problem of in these genres of things where you're like, you stop yourself from doing something because you're like, well, I don't have a good enough this. So, and I need the next thing.
Yeah.
So even if you have a 3-year-old computer and there's like a 1-year-old or a current computer that's, let's say, I don't know what percent better. And you're like, I'm not going to buy that to do the job because next year there'll be a better one. Then it's already done. Right?
Yes.
So the right way to think in that situation is, I'll just make it work on my 3-year-old computer.
Yes.
And until I have something that needs the 1-year-old computer, I won't buy it.
Exactly.
Just make it work. It's good
Yeah.
enough. That's the good enough, right?
I still drive a 2012 Toyota FJ Cruiser
Exactly.
because
Right.
like
So
there hadn't been a new car that does what that does in the same way that's come on the horizon yet that's made it worth it, and to where that one's cost me. The same thing is true of like the computers that I do use. I'm joking about being at the edge of that because I don't really feel that anymore. As a matter of fact, the more I use AI for the services like ChatGPT, like Claude and Perplexity, which just announced something else, and I'm going to show you what initially the pop of OpenClaw and the thing that it will do stuff for you, and we're like, well, it sounds like Claude Cowork, like you were saying, with just a little extra or too much extra. Everybody is articulating towards that. OpenAI absorbed
yes.
OpenClaw and made it easier for you to use their API because they can make money, because the more you use it, you're going to pay for that API usage, by the token. Ultimately, even if you have an account, you'll probably use it so heavily that you'll end up paying extra money on top of whatever your pro account is. That's what they're counting on, because these guys were stacking up like $100 a day AI bills because of how much it was using. So
That's because they didn't think ahead. They just like decided, oh, I'll just have all of my shit go through the most expensive API.
Yeah,
And then
'cause
they
it's
got
the best.
hammered with a bill. Like
That's right.
That's just not thinking through it
That's
at
right.
the beginning, right?
So let me show you real quick.
So,
We were talking about Claude Cowork or whatever being that other thing. This is Codex. This is the on the web version of it. The little game I just ran. Let's see. It made some changes that I just asked it to make. Again, let's see if I can open this up for you. It made a change on the back. Okay, they now follow me. I think they're stuck. I think that was it. So I told them they turned into poop emojis when I hit yeah, so they turned into turds. It's hard to see. And I can eat them. And then they just, they killed me.
One ate and one killed you? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's a little sad. And well, I was running into them to try and make it move something. But the point is it was, the burgers, if I hit the big circus peanut, it turns them into poop emojis, and then I can eat poop, and then they turn back into burgers. It was just dumb. But the point is, I was able to iterate these changes, in between us, while you were talking on some of these things, and listen to you at the same time.
But that's what play is, right?
Yes.
Like you're either reading someone else's book or you're like doing a choose your own adventure that you're writing as you go.
Yes.
Like that's essentially what's happening.
Right.
And so, in terms of software, almost all software is like, it's like an 80, I actually call it a 90-10 rule when it comes to software. Like I own, for the business, I own some very expensive software. Maybe one of the more expensive ones called SolidWorks. Mm-hmm. It's a CAD software. It's been around I've been on it since 98. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's been around since 94. That thing is very expensive. And I probably use 10% of the features. And I can do our entire job with 10% of the features of this thing. But mm-hmm. I have to pay for it every year because they update it, and they update it with useless shit that I'll never use. Right. But I have to have it. Right. Well, if you could do your job with a thing that you made yourself, it doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to do the job.
Right.
So it, like, you can make something incredibly efficient for most jobs, like Excel. Excel's a good example. Mm-hmm. If you just add columns up, then you don't need most of what Excel does. You just need to add columns up, right? So like,
every time I open Claude right now on the web, if I go back to like start a new chat, like, or open the whole page on the browser, it asks me if I want to add Claude to Excel.
Yes. And it's like, you don't need Excel you do in certain
tables.
Cases. Yeah, says same with Adobe for artists. Exactly. So mm-hmm. if anybody uses any of the Adobe products, I will bet you any money that you use 10% or less of the actual tools in that damn software.
Right.
Because you do what you do, and so they have to design it for the masses, but each person might only use a certain chunk of it. and
Right.
you're paying for all the overhead of that,
Mm-hmm.
and the complexity of it is carrying all the overhead for
Mm-hmm.
that. And so when AI disrupts this thing like your game is doing, it's going to disrupt that math. The
Yeah.
math of like, why am I buying, why am I spending 40 or 50 bucks a month for a Creative Cloud license for Adobe when all I use is one software and I might use 10% of the tools? Can't I just buy 10% of the tools and just use those?
Yep.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me. So Perplexity is, we don't talk about Perplexity very often, but I know some people who use it as their primary one, and it's a very research oriented AI.
Yeah.
It is specifically like it, the science community likes it a lot and trusts it. Like it's in the tiered list, it's like Perplexity, then Claude, then ChatGPT. On a personal level, it's ChatGPT, then Claude. But as far as people's choice, Claude is and in the nerd community, Claude is top, right? So if you're like a vibe coding, I want to build a stock trading thing, give it $1,000 and have it make me $1 million overnight, blah blah blah. Those are all the Claude boys, right? So Perplexity, interestingly enough, introduces this thing called Perplexity Computer this week,
Mm-hmm.
and this is effectively their response to OpenClaw or CoWork. Right now, that's the one area where it's curious that OpenAI absorbed OpenClaw. And so they didn't put out their own version of CoWork. They basically,
It's Open Claw, which is why it's called Open Claw.
that's right. Yeah. That's why,
Open AI,
yeah,
Open Claw.
that's right. They chose the name to make you think, oh, OpenClaw, I'll use OpenAI and da da da. And the codex works really well. So there's a good reason why people would use OpenClaw and go and with codex, it could do a lot. So point being,
And
though,
the maker of OpenClaw is like openly saying that he thinks Codex is the best version of these things. And
that's right.
and not to say he's right or wrong, just to say it's obvious that that was all planned. That was
Yes,
all part of the deal.
absolutely. Like you can call it. As a matter, we'll insist that you call it OpenClaw if we give you this
Right.
bazillions of dollars, whatever it is. And it stays. I will say, to OpenAI's credit, at least keeping with their brand, they are keeping it in a foundation model. That it is like a charitable foundation. OpenClaw will exist in a nonprofit GitHub kind of world, where people can experiment with it and do all this other stuff. But the idea is that, wink, wink, nod, nod, you should really use Codex and OpenClaw APIs to pay for it internally. You can use all your cute little local models all you want, but if you really want the cutting edge, you come to us. So that's kind of thing. Okay, so Perplexity puts this thing together. And I'll explain to you, ladies and gentlemen, their description of how it works. This is what they've said. Perplexity Computer operates the software stack just like a human coworker would by using it. Computer reasons, delegates, searches, builds, and by the way, computer is used as a noun, and this is the name of the proper noun. Searches, builds, remembers, codes, and delivers. Start by describing an outcome. Perplexity Computer breaks it into tasks and subtasks, creating subagents for execution. The subagents might do web search, document generation, data processing, or API calls to your connected services. Now, this is the key. Why is my mouse just decided to stop thinking? It might be. There it is. This is the part that you got to keep an eye out for. API calls to your connected services. You connect not only Perplexity, which you have to be on the max plan, which is $200 a month or $2,000 a year of their max plan to use this. But once you do, you can also attach it to any of the other APIs you have. You can put Claude in there. You can put OpenAI's API in there. So it will draw on those as well, and it will cost you above and beyond whatever you charge. You're charged to use it in the max plan. You will also use it on top of this. So a document is drafted by one agent while another gathers the data it needs. The coordination is automatic and the work is asynchronous. You can focus on other things or run dozens of Perplexity computers in parallel. When computer runs into a problem, it creates subagents to solve it. It can find API keys, research supplemental information, code apps if necessary, sound familiar, and check in if it truly needs you. Every task runs in an isolated compute environment with access to real file system, a real browser, and real tool integrations. The result is a safe harness for powerful AI, universally accessible without localized setup, and delivering the best work of every current top AI model, meaning that you can use them to process these things, but Perplexity wants to be the safe alternative to OpenClaw with compute.
And frankly, that's as much a marketing effort as it is like a trust effort, as it is the reality of them maybe or maybe not being more or less safe.
Right. Yeah. In many ways, define safe. And again, I'm you know
Right.
me, safety third. So, this is the intelligent multimodal orchestration. One of the things that showed up with ClaudeBot was a thing called or OpenClaw was Vision Claw, and that's where they basically hacked the Meta Glasses API. So that you could just with your glasses, you could use it like you would film on your phone with Gemini and go, what am I looking at here? It would just do it out of there, and the auto translation aspect of it would kind of hijack that. So if you're talking to somebody, it would translate what they're saying into the speakers, that you're using without having to, I guess you could buy the glasses and not sign up for Facebook or something now would be the theory. And there are a lot of knockoff versions where they have their own app. You could sidestep that entirely as well. But this is the important part right now. The AI is now the computer. And this kind of talks to the arc we were talking about earlier of like the time scale of the hockey stick isn't really a hockey stick if you're watching how much of a mountain this has been to climb this entire time. It only appears because you've just gotten used to stuff. It's really more like one of these like, it's like the stock market after 2008 over and over again. It's like this drop, drop, more
Like
than anything.
AI wouldn't be functional at all if the computers weren't ever in everybody's hands.
Yep.
Cell phones weren't in everybody's hands.
That's right.
There weren't a whole internet and all these APIs for it to call.
Yeah.
Without all of that, it wouldn't work at all.
That's right. So this is in 1757, mathematician Alexis Clairaut employed two computers, in air quotes or in real quotes, the title for apprentices at the time. That's where computer came from. These are the people who would do the math for you. To refine Edmund Halley's prediction about comets, or Halley, sorry. I don't know why. Working day and night for months, the trio split their work and successfully predicted the perihelion of Halley's Comet within 2 days of accuracy. The word computer has evolved since then, but it's always meant the same thing: autonomous division of complex work with accuracy as a central underlying necessity. That's what we think of for a computer. Go do the computing. That's what calculator is. Calculator is just another translation of the word computer, by the way.
It's like the movie Hidden Figures.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
a group of people who did the calculations, and they were like talking about replacing them with an IBM mainframe
and then they all got good at inserting the punch cards. That was the next job, right? It was filling out the punch cards.
Well, just making it work. I mean, nobody even understood it.
Right. The best AI models in the world are already capable of extraordinary work, but they lack is a system that can orchestrate capability across tasks, tools, and time. Until today, Perplexity Computer is here and available to Max. Is also available to enterprise Max users soon, which I don't know. I guess that's the business thing that they have. Point being is that this is all of them responding to OpenClaw.
Absolutely.
Chasing this immediately because this is where the demand is. And like I said, right now we are at a division point. And chat room, I think a lot of you probably, from our experience with you guys, I'm fairly sure I know which group you're in. But it's that, oh my God, it can control my computer, to, oh, thank God it can control my computer, right? There is a real division there. That is the vast majority of people talking about this in the media, in academia, in technology, fall instantly into one of those groups with very little gray area. And I feel like I live like you. Maybe it's just the Libra in me, but very much in that gray area. I want it to control certain aspects of it, and I have, oh dear God, I don't want it to control the other parts of it because I, as a creative, there's a part of my job I never want it to do because it's
Yeah, and
part of my humanity.
that's the context window concept
Yeah.
that I'm kind of hammering on, and that is like in certain contexts, and context would be like you go to work, work is context,
Yep.
and you come home, that's a different context. Like you act differently at home with your spouse than you do with your coworkers, right? And you can use AI in the same fashion. Like
Yep.
um and one of the things I think that scares everybody is that, using that analogy, like those things have blended together so much because your cell phone now is your connection to email, text, Slack, like
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so like those things blend together. But if you do maintain uh, if you compartment your contexts in this case, then you can exist like this. You can use AI like pretty well without causing you to maybe, I mean, what's the worst? Like, I'm trying to figure out what the worst that can happen to me would be. And I don't have enough of anything to like have it screw up if I keep it in its own compartment.
Yeah.
So if that makes any
Well,
sense.
it's like you can. That's how it is. Literally, why people hired employees. Let me explain
Right.
something. This is literally why you hire an employee to be part of your job and not use family members for everything, or just have children to run the farm and
Right.
go.
You want to compartmentalize.
You want that motherfucker to go back to his house at the end of the day. You don't want to you don't want to keep everybody in your home as an indentured servant who works at your job. Like, okay, if you join our company, you get to sleep in the barn, right? That's a terrible idea because I might like your intellect. I might like your problem solving ability and your coding ability, but I don't want you living on my property and I would like to have a private life, right? That is literally the same thing. Um,
Yeah. Somebody said data mining always the risk. So like the most interesting part, and I'm not sure that we've like really well explained it, but the files that you talked about
yeah.
OpenClaw having, which you were calling memory, um, like now that is the data. If you want to, if we want to talk about that for a second, so
Mhm.
so if you spend the entire day recording what you say, and then that goes into a file and you use OpenClaw, you use your AI assistant to basically make a transcript of everything you said that day.
Yeah.
It it's too much for it to like always remember. And it would be the same for your spouse. If you walked
Yes.
around with your spouse all day long, like they wouldn't remember everything you said. What they
Yeah.
would do is they'd like have chunks like, oh yeah, when we were walking by the lake he said this and I remember that,
Hmm.
and you remember it right and you remember it wrong, and all these things. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, so you talked all day and then the agent essentially did a summary, just like if you upload a PDF or a document or a book and you say, hey AI, summarize War and Peace.
Hmm.
Right. Seriously.
Yes.
So then it gives you like bullets, like
Hmm.
25 bullet points of War and Peace, right? You could do that for your day. Here's 10 bullet points that summarize everything I said today. Those
Yeah.
10 bullet points go into this memory file, and that file is essentially what you own. You own that stuff.
Right.
And so every time you speak then to an AI chatbot, if the stuff that you have, that 10 bullet points, went with it, that's kind of like your unique version of that chat. It's your
Right.
context,
Yeah.
right? So what we're talking about owning is actually the summary of your speech, of your typing, of your pictures, like the things, those things. It's the summary of that. I don't know if that's making any sense.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Um, and what my thing that I'm working on, or I've been working with it for literally about 3 months, it effectively is a very large version of of summaries of everything that I work on.
Yeah.
And so now that is a very valuable thing, and that's the thing I hold on to. That is my own.
Yes. So and again, in some ways, I keep going back to, because I've always been a techno scrapper, I would say. That
Mm-hmm.
I've always been building the race car during the race in terms of computer stuff that I use. I like the cutting edge aspect of it. I edited my first like demo tape as an actor on an old Mac, an old 128. You
What
know,
was it? Oh, like
with a
before the 2E or whatever it
Oh
was
yeah,
called?
wait, it was the Media 100 system that you could add to it, and it allowed you to have like, two tracks of, of video editing and cutting it together, and it was fucking great. But like by today's standards, I mean, it's like iMovie just dusted it instantly the minute it was released, and it's free.
Right.
It comes with every Mac. So the I'm always like very bullish on this because it was the equalizer. I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
coming from Kentucky and going to Chicago, and the financial level that my family was in, there was no shot I was going to Yale or Harvard for acting that would automatically bounce me up into an upper echelon of the kind of projects that you could audition for, from the jump. It's just, where I would get at 18 years old be considered for a fucking, Spielberg film. That's not how that works. The way you get considered for those is you come up through the Yale and specifically Yale and Harvard, a lot of British, a lot of Cambridge and Oxford as well, and then the occasional like Northwestern even, or something like
Mm-hmm.
that would be the closest I could have come to. But with my grades and what I was going for, I wouldn't have gotten into the theater program. Even if I came in with the accomplishments I already had before I graduated high school, that wouldn't have gone towards me getting into Northwestern for theater. Ironically enough, I would have had to have a GPA, which is antithetical to the very field I wanted to go into. Like, who gives a fuck what my algebra grades were? If I'm playing somebody who, I could star in A Beautiful Mind and never be good at math. That's not how that works, right? So
Right.
it was the wrong standard, but I wouldn't have financially been able to afford to go to Northwestern. I was just automatically out of that. So when I came to LA, every possible technological thing I could take advantage of, including like printing my own headshots, once the printers got good enough, so I didn't have to pay $100 for, to get a stack of them, and being able to print my own resumes, literally not having to pay a printer to print out my resumes, so I could give a stack of 100 of them to my agent to mail out to people, shit like that. And then ultimately being able to put together a demo tape, and which ultimately led to me shooting and directing a pilot for my sketch comedy group, Here Comes the Neighborhood, that was at we performed at the Ice House every weekend, 2 shows every weekend, 90-minute shows every Friday and Saturday night. I was able to take the effort that went into that and take some of our sketches and shoot them, film them, edit them, so much so that I at one point had a sketch that was about 5 minutes long, and I could get to 4.5 minutes before the audio would drift. And I literally called Apple, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? I got the fastest hard drive I could find. It was like 7,200 RPMs at the time, which is the standard at that. And there was no SSD. And, I was like, we've got all these markers. I'm toning down. I'm doing the audio on a separate track after the edit and slapping it on. And I've got it to, 4.5 minutes. And they were like, we can't get it past 3. What the fuck are you doing? So I am actually thanked in the manual for the original Final Cut for like 8 years. And then there's a little thing that can make the dog cow come up on screen while you're using, it's like a Easter egg that will make the dog cow, the old Apple dog cow, walk across the screen, and it will take quotes. It's got quotes behind it. It's got 2 quotes from me in it. From my meeting with them. They put that in there. So, I've been like ice skating uphill against this shit and dragging a ton of bricks behind me. And if that hadn't existed, no one would know who I am. I would not have the career I have. I would have not ever gotten Talk Soup. I never would have gotten the shows I did before that. it just wouldn't have happened because I wouldn't have had the toehold that would have allowed me to be in that position when that job showed up. The opportunity would not have, it would have arrived well after the point that that job had long gone. And arguably that's why the 90s were the Sisyphus years for me. But I at least made progress, even if it slid back. These things, these tools, are so inspiring to me in those terms for people who are small and medium-sized businesses. And part of this talk about the first billion-dollar one-person company is here is just, it sounds like a bunch of douche talk from a bunch of wannabe day traders. But the reality is what it means is you can circumvent the gates that used to be there that everybody had to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, the measure of like being successful in business or whatever is that you become a billionaire is fucking stupid in my opinion. Like if you can make a living doing whatever it is you want, not going to someone else's office and
Right.
you know, hoping that they keep you employed for reasons which are completely out of your control. If you can make a living doing that, then that's the American dream.
Yep.
It just is, right?
Yep.
Like I would argue that that's it. So, you know, like, can you run a business that makes a $500,000 in revenue for two people a year and make enough of a living that two people can go home and live and, you know, live on
Yeah.
whatever,
Have a
like
life.
have a life.
Yeah.
Like that's a success. So, and that's what most small businesses are. They're
Yeah.
just people making a living,
Yeah.
whatever it is that they choose to do. And AI can do that. Like it is currently doing it for me. Like I can't stress that enough. Like, and what it does is it takes away all of the things that you thought you needed if you use it right. Like you can get rid of software subscriptions. You don't need like the things that like you see other companies say you have to have. Like we were talking about Salesforce before, like, you know, some accounting software, some great web thing. Like you don't even need to hire a web developer anymore. You can practically just make a site like in an hour with your chatbot, right? So you just do the things that you need to do to get the thing out there that you want to do and
Right.
make a living and then work from there. That's how I
Right.
think about it. Somebody keeps saying to
Yeah.
look at Xpeng, Xpeng. It's like a
Yeah.
robotics company. I'm not sure that we want to get into robotics with
Oh
5 minutes
boy.
left.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
don't do that.
No, because we'll start off. Hold on. Yeah, we're wrap this up. By the way, Rob Glenn from Root Design Chicago, and my dear friend, who's, you know, you and I grind on this in our private time, you know,
Yeah.
like, and are fascinated by the directions. What would you say? Okay, how about this? In the last 5 minutes.
Sure.
What are you on the lookout for? Is there something on the horizon or a feature that is broken or a thing that's shown up that you're like, yeah, I'm definitely going to incorporate that, or I'm waiting for this shoe to drop or this moment to occur before I go all in on one aspect or another of this thing?
No, I think it's already here.
Yeah.
No, I'm dead serious. I'm not looking for anything. There's enough now that I could spend the next 6 months trying to make currently what's available be incredibly valuable to me and my company. I don't need to wait for anything. I'm
Right.
doing it right now. It's that simple. And so my thing is like, how can I do the most with the least money? and that's one of the reasons why I don't jump on a lot of things quickly, because funny enough, as everybody's known that's listened, like the only reason I use OpenAI is because my goal is to only use one. And
Yeah.
I don't want to use 5 or 3 or 4 different things and evaluate them. I just want to use one. And I want to like build out a history with that and see how that history then benefits. And so so right now I run my own local LLM that's on an old computer that I've had for 5 years. And I have a 20 or whatever what's the first level of OpenAI's monthly thing? It's 20, it's either
20
20 or
bucks.
29,
It's $20. Yeah.
20. So it's $20 a month.
Yeah.
And I was never using like the open, like the Claude co-work. I was like, oh, so, to answer that question that way, like I was like, oh, I really want to try Claude co-work. But then I waited 3 weeks and there was Codex and that was included in my
Right.
OpenAI. And I'm like, great, now I can use a co-work,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so I don't wait because it's like they all converge. So whatever the new thing is, like wherever you are, you're going to get access to something very similar in a week or two or a month. Like just wait and
Right.
it'll come. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think most of the things that are available and that are even with the rollout, it's almost like they're rolling them out, too slowly for the early adopters and the freak boys. But for folks like you and I'm still kind of working my way through how to best apply the tools that already exist. So adding
Exactly.
the next layer, I'll get to it, when my comfort level and the need arises.
Yeah.
I literally, and as an artist, I'm in a particularly curious space with it because while I don't want it to do any of my creative work for me, there are areas where it can do formatting for me. It can
Right.
do, stuff that everybody else has access to that I did not. For example, I did not have access to, I don't have an editor if I was writing a book. And so if I write a book, completely just written and go, hey, read through this, and from the perspective of a Simon and Schuster editor, someone who's worked with them for years, going on interviews of people who are editors for Simon and Schuster's and what they look for and what they see as common mistakes on first-time writers and blah blah blah. Look at my paper through that context, my book through that context, and give me notes and that I can go through and make my own decisions about whether to implement them or not. Same with an editor.
It can be your editor, and you
Yes.
can, as you said, you give it the persona of who the editor is, and it can probably do it pretty damn well.
So I wrote, and I'll end with this. Or whatever. So I wrote a paper on my economic theory, and its alignment with democracy and how capitalism and socialism are inadequate terms and are exonyms given to each other in a lot of cases for what they are. And I would say that Sparksism is actually the argument that we do now and in all societies with any success have lived in a mixed economy where collective choices to pay for larger projects that do not benefit a small or a medium-sized group of individuals could ever get off the ground without the buy-in from everybody, and that without the unique choices of individuals, the larger collective would starve off from solutions and basically die like an organism with the hyperfixated immunity, where it goes after certain cells, even if those cells cause autophagy, which gets rid of bad cells, right? It's not only that is socialism better or is capitalism better? My argument is doesn't fucking matter. Sparksism is how it works and will work no matter. And if you try to go for one or the other, you will collapse the entire system, like Mao's China or some sort of free market crypto horseshit, laissez-faire, no guideposts market economy that they set up. You do one or the other in extremity of any sort. You can have a balance on culture that's different for each culture. Some might lean more in one direction than the other, but ultimately without that secondary, without the mixed economy, it will eat itself. It will cause revolution, or it will cause fraudulent collapse internally or whatever. And I have, I'll thank you very much. I have equations to back this up. But I have never written an academic paper. So what I basically did was I talked through all these points with 5 different AIs arguing my concepts. And it was like, okay, you're missing this point then, or in classical economics, they would regard this as an important, procedure element of this. And I would go, okay, well then my answer to that is this. And I would argue it back and forth, and I would debate it basically on my theory. And then I took all of those debates and I was like, okay, organize my arguments and the best descriptives that I have into a cohesive outline. And then I want it formulated, and then I'll talk them out. I basically spoke them into how I wanted them described. And then I want them formulated into an academic journal style outlet because I'd never written one before. I was never, I would, I could go get a degree in this, but that would take up a lot more time, and is unnecessary to the point I'm trying to make. It's about the format and the access to the data, like how people could accept it when they see it in a certain academic circle versus just hearing me say it. And they're like, who the fuck are you? But if they read it in terms they understand and the jargon they're used to, it's like translating it to a different language. It can do that for me very quickly. It just translated my ideas into academia speak. But it didn't change the idea. That was the important thing, was that I want this to be wholly my idea and my points of argument, but I want the cleanest, most academic ones for this particular paper. And so I've used it for that part, and I'm going to publish that in a journal, in an economic and scientific journal.
Right. And that's like, it's domain speak, right? So
Yeah.
we had the same thing. We designed nobody ever believes me when I say the stuff we do. We designed this essentially like a heart valve that is currently in human trials. And the doctor is submitting it, or has been submitting it to medical journals and things like that. And we did the same thing, or I had to basically I didn't know anything about writing for that style. And I had to help him answer technical questions inside of the work we do, but in the form of the article that he was writing, because it had to be in that domain language.
Yeah.
That's LLMs are incredibly good at that, effectively translation.
That's
and it's
right.
not just from one language to another, it's from domain to domain as well, which is incredibly powerful. Yeah, sorry.
It's good. And I came up with, in the description of how I would talk about these, I came up with a term called the economic DMZ, the demilitarized zone, which is where democracy sits. What you really see in an argument in the government about where government funds should go, what should be private, what should be public, that's the demilitarized zone. That's where we legislate the difference instead of fighting over it or just leaving it to die. We go, this is an area of strategic peace, no fighting in this zone. Ironically, when we look for fighters in the government, when the exact opposite is actually the function point of the government, we set up democracy to stop the fucking fighting. That's the irony. And that everybody wants, you want people to go in there and be able to argue their points and speak the philosophical reasoning behind it as powerfully as possible. And that's what we colloquially call fighting. But in reality, you want them to work it out. You want the solution, and you want the best solution available with the environmental and ecological and economic terms that you have, or whatever. And so I have this, it's based on this stability process or hypothesis that any pure system it lacks stability. It will always teeter to one side and fall over. And the only way you have this is this back and forth. The constant gardening of democratic governance is born out of the stability hypothesis. And so I've been thinking this stuff for a long time, but I was never able to translate it, as you said, into language that strata that I was not born into, that I did not have access to financially, socially. I wasn't networking on fucking campus.
You didn't have the time to do it.
Right.
You were doing all this stuff.
Exactly. I was busy trying to build, from scratch the career that I had, much less, the other interests that I have that I think, have value no matter what. I believe that this philosophy is something that I've come up, it's why I'm a big fan of Jefferson and Da Vinci. So I, people who did multiple things, what we would call in the South, the country gentleman, which has died a horrible death because everybody's become so anti-intellectual. But you speak multiple languages, philosophy as well as your trade. You play a musical instrument. You can work with your hands. You can do carpentry and those kind of things. That aspect of being a man is meaningful to me. And I just didn't have the tools available to me. Like somebody built born into a fiefdom village in the fucking British Isles in the 1600s, right? It. You've got land to till. That's all you're ever going to do. It's a class system, and you're never going to break out of it. So just do that and shut the fuck up. If you start getting aspirations, you're just going to make yourself miserable. That's gone. It's been gone for a long time. It's supposedly the promise of America entirely. And in the 250th year, I think one of the things that we can really point to as a possibility of an example of that coming true, the American dream actually being launched into a new generation of human beings, not just here but worldwide, is this ability, this equalizer, this the democratization of intellect and labor that is coming our way. That means that not only the people who were born with means will have means, and not only the people who kill people and stand on top of the ground that has means under it, be it oil, gold, or cobalt or lithium, they're not going to, those means, if you've got an AI, you can go, hey, if I didn't have lithium, what other battery stuff could I make? Like, we got a bunch of this laying around. That's exactly what happened. The solid state battery, there's 3 of them that have been introduced in the last 7 months because of these advances. The need for,
there was always solid state power. It's a capacitor essentially,
right.
But they're figuring out how to scale them.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here with me, Rob. I greatly appreciate it. Next time, all robots. That's what I'm saying. I insist.
Well, there was something somebody mentioned that, we should talk about what we would, or I would, and I think you might line up what our new idea of prompting would be, because I think prompt engineering is like total bullshit now.
I agree.
Like I haven't structured a prompt like that in probably 3 months.
I agree. I'll tell you what I have right now, and this will become antiquated probably in the next 3 months maximum, which is I have a like a note that I keep in my Notion that has like notes to the LLM, whichever one it is. So if I have to jump over, if I'm using ChatGPT all the time, and it knows because of its context window in its memory, it's stacked up a bunch of stuff. I at one point when I was setting up OpenClaw, I asked ChatGPT, I was like, hey, give me a dossier that could explain how I like things to OpenClaw and the details that are necessary to help that you use to help me. So I can just upload this like, hey, this is who I am and what I want and how you should act and what you should store in memory and what you shouldn't. And just give me a big document of that. And I literally downloaded that document, checked it, went through, agreed. I added a couple of things and I erased some things that were superfluous, I thought. And then I put them back in because I thought maybe I don't think they're necessary, but maybe a brand new dumb AI might need it. So I left them back in. And then I just uploaded that. And then I have that document as a
prompt. Yes. Paste it in as the first thing.
That's right. And then and depending on its ability to remember those things, it will just operate on that premise going forward. And the only time I will ever do like a role-playing one is if I specifically need it to do that temporarily. Hey, for the sake of this chat, not any other, you are this, and I'm asking you questions about this particular, you are an expert in this area. That whole role-playing part of it is a temporary thing. Like, put on your genius science hat right now because that's all I want to talk about. And I don't want you to think this is what I want to talk about all the time. There's a particular topic I'm looking into, and I need you for it. But I have all 3 of the AIs, and I effectively have them trained because I go to them like specific experts, distillations in and of themselves, so that they're easier for me to use.
So each AI is its own chat window. Like, it's the same concept. You're just compartmentalizing the context essentially.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Cool. So go ahead. How would you how are you you're just talking directly to it because it kind of knows at this point, right? Because you've given it a set of instructions.
So what if I have something very complicated, I'll have a very long conversation about the ins and outs of all the details of that in a single chat window. And it's already like, that's already layered with memory of the memory I have with it, or it has with me.
Right.
And then at the end of that, like along the way, if I go off on a tangent, I'll end the tangent by saying, I'm going to choose this.
Yes.
This is like, so like, again, you're like, I need to pick a path for this one paragraph or this one point. I'm going to go off on a tangent. And then at the end of the tangent, I'm like, I decided I'm going to go this way. And then I go to the next one and then the next one. And I say and then at the end of it, I say, take everything we've just talked about and create a prompt for me to move this conversation into another chat window where I want to make the thing that I'm talking about. And almost every time, the thing that it makes becomes the prompt that makes the thing that I wanted to make. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
it's effectively making a prompt for the complicated thing I want it to do.
Yeah. That's exactly right. You can almost like work it out and then go, hey, if I was trying to explain this entire conversation to you, what would you need to understand the entire version of this? And also give me a document version of it in case I need to pop it into another
Exactly.
AI or something.
Sometimes I'll just copy paste that into Google Docs and I'll keep
Exactly.
it for a second.
Yeah.
But and then the other thing I do is I hardly ever try to do everything at once.
Yeah.
Like, and that I think that's where a lot of when you read online, like, hey, I want to make an app. I want like people try to do everything at once.
Mm-hmm.
What I try to do is like one little tiny thing, and then I just build on it and build on
Right.
it and build on it. And it takes longer, but you work it out as you go, and you don't have to like go back and correct things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Codex has allowed that to be even way faster.
Oh yeah.
Like
All
because
right.
I keep
You sold me. I'm gonna practice with Codex a little bit. I have it.
so
Yeah.
I run a web server, like a local web server, and I try to code everything in a way that works on a local web server.
Yeah.
And then if you have that and you're connecting to it through your LAN, you can have the code all open in VS Code, which is a Microsoft free coding thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Codex is in VS Code. So you don't, so
Right.
like I never write code. I literally just have it there
Right.
and just tell Codex what to do. Boom. And then I refresh the page and it's done.
Yeah.
And then I use it. And then I'm like, I want it to do something else. Da-da-da. Boom.
Yeah.
Just like you were doing with your game, but
Yeah.
for like really large applications.
Right. It's
And
and
to me, that's like the whole.
well, that's
Like,
what put the
it's
fear
like
of
I was
God
saying,
into
like,
the
I
S.
hate QuickBooks.
Yeah. Right.
Why? Because I only use 10% of QuickBooks. So I'm going to do this soon.
Yes.
I'm going to make my own damn QuickBooks.
Right.
That I can export to my CPA that he'll like still think it's QuickBooks.
Mm.
But then what you can do is you're like, oh, I need to do this today. Just freaking code it. Like you don't need it to do all the stuff. Just
which
make
is
it do what you need
the
to
big
do that day.
fear. Yeah, and the big crash that the AI bubble that occurred in the stock market last week was the crash of software as a service SaaS
Yes.
companies,
No.
because everybody's like, what the fuck? How are you going to justify an entire company to do a piece of software somebody could vibe code in the afternoon? And that's the way things are going. Whether it's this year or next year or 5 years from now, everybody like your level and mine is going to be just going, hey, I just need this. I don't need that whole
Exactly.
shit.
And so, but that's my point is like software as a service isn't going to go away.
No.
Because as you grow, you need more consistency and you need the overhead. You need that extra stuff. But that's why I say that this time is for small companies. It's for individuals.
Yes.
Because you don't need the overhead and you don't need to buy the overhead to get the three things you needed to do. Do the three things.
That's what I'm saying.
trying to
The
articulate.
democratization of all of these tools and the cost structure that makes them exist is the same way like buying Creative Studio or like getting it on a monthly subscription basis cracked open the ability for a lot of photographers, artists,
Exactly.
musicians, creators of all sorts to use those tools when they never would have been able to afford to buy a $700 piece of software every year with the update like they used to on the regular. It was just fucking impossible. Like, and so that availability opened up careers for millions of people. And this has the potential for doing exactly the same. The big fear is the people who have their own companies and their own, they've hired a bunch of employees to do their job when they don't need to do it anymore. And their competitors are 5 guys in a fucking garage or 5 women in a fucking, WeWork office or at home or in all their separate homes talking over Slack. Right. I got to let you go because we're going to raid Boston Brian and he's over there, but I want to show everybody one last thing and we're going to talk about it this afternoon. I don't know if you saw this Lutnick story.
Oh God.
But there's a picture of Howard Lutnick walking around with Jeffrey Epstein, and I believe that's his son. So this must be the same trip, the one and only 1 hour trip, which they don't seem to be eating lunch. They seem to be walking around on who this is. And
Date on the photo.
They're on Little St. James Island, and the reason this picture was redacted, it was on the Gmail site that people could download. It was redacted from the DOJ site. They took it down. You know how? You know why they took it down? Does anybody know?
No idea.
They flagged it for nudity.
Yeah.
So when Pam Bondi is saying this is child porn, we're not going to show you this stuff. Like, okay, what you flagged as stuff is you're using that that's an exact example of using we're not going to release nude pictures of people, that bullshit, as cover to hide other documents. So
we're so far past the I told you so now that like the people in whatever camp you're in on this stuff, you either are like, yeah, of course they're covering it up, or yeah, they're covering it up and I don't care. Like, I don't think there's a person in the United States that doesn't think that it's bogus. It's just which side you fall on and how you want to justify it.
Exactly.
That's really all there is anymore.
That's right. And that's and again, all these AI tools, I think Ian Carroll even built his own vibe-coded tool to look through the Epstein files.
They're so toast. There's so much shit in there that's gonna.
They're fucked.
We haven't even begun to see the stuff that is going to come out when people start doing exactly what, like, some smart person gets Codex or co-work and just starts like scrolling, getting through all this shit. Like, it's going to happen.
In a statement to the Daily Beast, a DOJ official said the image was part of a batch of files that had been flagged for nudity. The batch of thousands of images was pulled for review and is being uploaded with necessary redactions on a rolling basis. There were no redactions in that one. It was pulled for nudity, and the only reason they ever put it up, they didn't put that one back up. That was on the Gmail site because it had been from other files released years ago, through lawsuits. It was like somebody had hacked his iCloud, his iPhoto.
Yeah, and I don't even know why we go through the motions anymore, like
of arguing with these assholes, right?
The thing that I was like, I mean, I love Hillary Clinton, and like I'm a Democrat through and through, but like her, like she had an opportunity, like when she comes out and speaks, she has an opportunity to go totally off the wall. Like, she doesn't need to stay within the confines of the rules of the committee or whatever she thinks decorum is. Like, that was an opportunity for her to advocate for victims and like just straight up call it like it is. Like, she knows what's going on. And so the only thing that I am really kind of like frustrated about, and I wish that we could get over that, is like you mean like when this? Are we just going to start saying it like it is? And we can do that without being crazy MAGA. Like, we can be Pam Bondi with her burn book without being crazy Pam Bondi with her burn book.
Yeah, with good reason, right? As opposed to just his cover. We're not covering anything. We can actually
bullshit anyway. So like answer the question that you want to answer while you're standing in front of the microphone, because that's all it is anyway. It's just a bunch of clips that are going to go on TikTok.
I agree. I think what they're doing is she's waiting till he was done speaking today, and then we're going to see more of that. Okay. And then both of them are going to push for, why hasn't Trump spoken yet? We spoke. We didn't have a problem. We sat for hours. It's exactly. It's already happening. It's already happening. Yeah. They said it. She said it yesterday, and then he said it, I think, even during this thing or whatever. But apparently. This is from like just reports on this. And we'll cover this later on the afternoon show, but I thought, on our way out the door, we should at least cover this. Former President Bill Clinton blasted House Republicans for hauling in his wife Hillary for questioning in the Epstein investigation. He confronted the lawmakers on Friday after the former Secretary of State sat down for hours of grilling on Thursday in Chappaqua. She has no memory of even meeting him. She neither traveled with him nor visited any of his properties, Clinton said. Whether you subpoenaed 10 people or 10,000, including her, was simply not right. The former president was facing mounting pressure to answer, blah, blah, blah. He showed up. Clinton denied any knowledge of criminal activity, immediately distanced himself from Epstein, as a lot of these guys are doing. Though my brief acquaintance with Epstein ending years before his crimes came to light, and though I never witnessed during our limited interactions any indication of what was truly going on, I'm here to offer what little I know going on. I'm here to offer what little I know so that it might prevent anything like this from ever happening again. Like, that's where they're starting from. So
and so Eleni G687, these numbers are fucking stupid. Eleni said that she did mention victims, and she did.
Yes,
and I'm not like being a Hillary basher right now. What I'm getting at is I watched her speech, and she didn't say stuff about the victims until like, well, I was in the committee and I answered all the questions and I did this and I did this and they just kept repeating, and then something about it's like, no, just forget about all the decorum. Just be
Right.
like, come right out with the victim statement. Like,
Right.
I don't know why I was here, because they should be out talking to victims. Why was
Right.
I here when they should talk to victims? Like, and I'm not saying I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth.
No, that's
I'm
a
just
brilliant take.
hopeful,
I
and
completely
I'm pretty
agree.
sure we're really close
Yeah.
to our side becoming a good version of the Pam Bondi filibuster.
Yes.
And
Well,
I hope that happens. Really
you know
soon.
that obviously that's how I deliver on my show in the
course.
afternoons, and that's what I do. And I'm hoping they take a page out of my book. But I think there also is, Democrats need to steal from Trump in chest beating over things they've actually accomplished, in the way that he
Absolutely.
chest thumps about shit that he's lying about. If he's going to lie about lowering gas prices and beat his chest about it, then we should like beat into everybody that you wouldn't have Social Security or SNAP or fucking Pell Grants without us. So that is, that's crucial. And also, Obama didn't invade, Syria or bomb Iran during that time. Neither did Biden. So if there's some deep state running things that's making us do these things, apparently Trump is on board. But I agree. I think that would be a great point from her, is to go, look, I'm glad I got a chance to sit down. I answered all their questions fully, and all of this stuff needs to be addressed. Anybody around this that can provide any information, however small, might be great for investigators to find out something that leads them someplace else. That is true of any investigation. But what should really happen is that these committee members should sit down with each of these victims for hours. If they sat down for 8 hours with victims, that's a brilliant
point. I wouldn't
point.
even add the first sentence. I would just ask me a question, and my answer is, why aren't I wish the victims were here. Why aren't the victims here?
Yeah.
I wish that so and so was here. Like, what was the guys they went to Ohio for? Les Wexner.
Yeah, Les Wexner.
Why did Lex Wexner not come to there? Why did they go to them? Right? Like, it's
I hear you.
I think I am a big, huge. I get really sick of seeing like I don't know, like moderate style, raging moderates, Bulwark, where like they do a great job, and then like midway through they're like, but Democrats, and it's like,
like Jesus,
Democrats
right.
are doing a really fucking good job right now. I mean,
They are, yeah.
They're everywhere, and we're just not seeing them because
Right.
It's not on Fox News, but like there is that one next step, and I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
like on a local level though, like I mean, you see people like the Major Ojeda, like when he's on your show, like in Texas, there's a lot of candidates, like in Virginia, like what's the governor who did the Democratic response, like
Abigail Spanberger, she did great.
Abigail Spanberger, like amazing. Like, so we're doing awesome. I just can't wait till the moment where we can just like throw all this decorum shit out, because it's not, they're not fair actors. Like
I agree.
Nobody on the left or on the right is like coming at anything with any sort of decorum or anything. So we shouldn't either.
I would agree to some degree, except I do know that what Democrats are going to largely be running on at some point in post-Trump era is that enough of that shit. Can we be professionals and adults again? And that's, you can't go completely scorched earth, but you can have people that are safe to be scorched earth, who are in safe districts or whatever, open up, verbally both barrels on everybody all the time. And that's where I think, the Major would be great once he gets elected. I think Robert Garcia is doing a great job. He's not pulling any punches, but it's interesting, but Massey is more outspoken than Ro Khanna is. Ro Khanna says the same thing in those genteel terms again. But again, there's a strategy in that as well. It's like, let them draw the fire while we're just standing there for the truth. And there is an element of like sober electoral politics that are in there, right? So it's
Khanna's like about as direct as anybody I've ever. I mean, every time I see him speak, he doesn't mince words at all, and he doesn't take very long to get to the point. He gets there really fast.
Right. Yes. Agreed.
And like very efficient wording.
Yeah. So great points, and I'm sure this is a whole other 2-hour show we could be doing on all this stuff. But I wanted to remind everybody that to keep an eye out for that story, and I will be discussing both Clintons. testimony and the responses to it this afternoon on the show, as well as this new breaking information of that pertains to Howard Nutlick and that crowd. So thank you so much, brother, and I will see you again
Great
very
to see
soon.
everybody in the chat, and have a great weekend.
All right.
Too, Hal. Love you.
Cheers. Yeah, you too. And chat and whoops, sorry, I'm gonna slip in here. There you go. Chat room, thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you found today's show informative, interesting, perhaps ever so slightly scary. Where's the okay, here we go. And in honor of the direction the news is gonna take today.
Yeah. If they ask, I forgot it.
Hit that like, share the show. It's Hal Sparks Megaworldwide.
Yeah.
Friday Eye.
We ain't saying nothing.
Trying to help.
Black bar over my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this.
What?
If it looks too wild on the
What?
axis,
We're gonna raid Brian, Boston Brian right now. Send everybody over there.
Blood and face can't fact
There we
check the
go.
madness. Throwing out page from the bad habits
All right.
atlas.
Now I'm
If
gone.
the
There we
story
go.
get messy in the ad libs, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. I was young, I was dumb, I was scrolling. Type way too much, hit send, heart swollen. Now I keep receipts like a lawyer with a folder, but anything risky get hit with the toner. Whole group chat, got tails, I ain't claim. If my name pop up, that's a typo, blame. Who's that in the pic? Man, that ain't go strange. That's a random stranger with a very close face. Understanding my friends, I plead don't recall. If they ask for the tape, it's a missing file. If they pull up the clip, that's deep fake style. If they show me the proof, I just smile like redact this. Black ball over my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Redact this. Blur that face, can't fact check the madness. Torn out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad libs, highlight, right click, boom. Yeah.